So guys, welcome back to the channel, and today you join me on a bright and sunny day, the start of spring and the start of a new project. Now behind me is a Discovery One that some of you would have remembered from the X-Mod MOD engine conversion. Now we bought this vehicle, we harvested it for the engine, it was a good car, and so I decided to keep the car and potentially at some point do a build. Now it's been in storage ever since, and the reason why I wanted to save this is some of you guys may know from way back in the channel, I have a couple of Discovery Ones and I'm still yet to rebuild my yellow Discovery, but I just kind of want to get this one in, get it done, and see what we can achieve with it. Now it's quite rare being a 3-door, and it's quite rare that it's green, and it's quite rare that it's in good condition, and it's totally standard. Now when I bought the vehicle, I got it for something like 250 quid less if I didn't have any wheels. So we had some other random wheels from an old Defender, and we threw them on, and we did what we needed to, and we've got everything that we needed to out of it, and we've just got a kind of a donor car here, which I think can be put to good use. And I have an interesting project which I dare pitch to you today. Now, I have always loved the Land Rover Discovery One, and I think it's the car that saved Land Rover for a number of reasons, and it was never really given any credit, and it is kind of lost in the world of the Land Rover Defender modifications, etc. They kind of get neglected and ignored, and I get it, they kind of have a goofy look to them, and they lean themselves very easily to a 2-inch lift, big wheels and tyres, smash it up off-road. And today I'm hoping that I can kind of change your mind with that. Now, the car behind me is a 1994. It was a 300 TDI, and it has 133,000 miles on it, or it did. We took the engine, of course. And my plan is to give it, obviously, a new engine and a new lease of life. So I plan to give it an engine conversion, something a bit more up to date. We plan to give it a respray because it's a little bit tired, give it the mechanical bits it needs, and see if we can create a good usable Land Rover that hopefully you guys think looks good. Now I know it's all too easy to make a Defender look good, and you guys have seen everything that we do here. And I think it is possible to make a Discovery One look good, perform well, and just be generally a lot of fun. And it's going to be an interesting journey because I need you guys to let me know what you guys think in the comments, etc., with certain design aspects of bits that we're going to carry out. This isn't going to be a massive build, and I'm hoping that I can actually get this across to you guys pretty quickly. But I think let's look around the car and see what we've got. So the car obviously used to be, I say obviously, the car used to be Epsom green. And Epsom green is a really, really nice and bright colour. And I want to keep it green, but I'm not sure I want to respray Epsom green. It obviously needs a respray. And this is quite odd about this Discovery One because it's quite rare to see vehicles in the UK with a lot of sun damage. And that makes me think actually that's quite good, because obviously it doesn't mean it's been sat in a wet, cold environment. It means it's been sat in the sunshine enough that the lacquer has been damaged, but that gives me a good indication of what I will find underneath. And obviously this car has been on the ramp before because we took the engine from it. And this is why I decided to keep it, because it's not rotten. It's in pretty good condition actually. Obviously these things get fairly neglected in terms of they never go to a specialist to have all the work done, etc. And it's pretty solid, the chassis is good. The suspension sagged a little bit, the front axle probably could do with a rebuild, but it all goes, starts and stops as we wish. Great day to be flying. The thing which drew me to this car, and the thing I like about it, is it's almost giving me Defender 90 vibes. It's a 3-door, and it is essentially a 100-inch Defender. It's already got solid shafts in the back. That was an early axle. It's already got the 24 spline Rover axles. It already has the LT230 transfer box that drives the axles. So we can bolt a standard fitment gearbox up to that, pretty straightforward. And of course the Discovery One came with a 1.2 ratio as opposed to the 1.410 ratio that you would find in a Defender. Now that means that lower ratio means that at cruising 70 miles an hour, we will have lower revs. And it's a very common modification in a Defender to fit a 1.2 ratio transfer box because it means cruising speeds are much more comfortable. So there is a little bit more room in this car than a Defender. You have a bit more arm room, it's a little bit softer, and it has that transfer box. And we're not going to be rebuilding the transfer box. We might reseal it, we might not, we'll see where we end up. But it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, this build, because I don't know how we're going to make it look good. And my first impression of this is that the 300 TDI variant of the Discovery One was a facelift, and it's quite rare nowadays that you would see a 200 TDI front end, which is the original little square headlamps. Now these look like a pirate dish or something you'd use in cooking, and they just look a little bit goofy for me. It doesn't look too offensive, but I personally prefer the original early Discovery one. So I'm going to try and date it back to a 200 TDI front end, and I think with the colour choice, maybe you guys can give me some indication. I was thinking Porsche olive green, I was thinking Epsom green, a number of things, but I do want it to be green because it'd be easy. I'm not planning to do a full strip out and all that kind of good stuff. Just maybe blow it over in a different colour. It's not going to be a pristine concours paint job, but the idea is you stand sort of 10 feet back and you think that's a good looking truck. So the wheel choice is also interesting because I actually don't hate the steel wheels, and I think if we're going for a classic appeal, maybe they're to stay, but obviously the tyres need to be changed because they look a little bit shrunken. But something's tall, skinny, classic, much like we usually do, might work on this car really well. But the actual car is pretty straight and solid. It's been pretty unmolested. It's had a few bits done to it, but it'll be interesting to see what this is going to be powered by. Now in the workshop, I have a 2006, I believe, TD5 engine and gearbox, which is pulled from a fairly low mileage 110. So that's the powertrain that's going to be going into this vehicle. And I think that's going to be an interesting choice for this because what lets the Discovery 1s down so much is, one is the body rot that they have on these, all the arches and the inner wings tend to rot out. These seem pretty good. But on a Disco 2, the body stays great and the chassis rots. So if we can make a hybrid version of the two, we might end up with a good usable Land Rover that doesn't cost the earth. So I think the powertrain of a TD5 in this, maybe with a gentle remap, will give us a nice bit of performance. We'll have some comfort, maybe we change the suspension, give it a nice wheel and tyre package and give it an overall refreshment. I think we should be left with a very good usable Land Rover. And hopefully I can change your mind on these old beasts. So it's been 6 months at least that this car has been laid up without an engine. Obviously it did start and drive and I home tested it and I was quite pleased about this, and I was quite sorry that I was taking the engine. Hence what this project is trying to undo my bad deed of potentially making a car scrap. And a bird has been making quite a nice quite a nice little home in here in the time being. But the chassis legs are good, and I think we've got something good here. You'll have to trust me. But I think the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pull it in the workshop. Maybe we'll pull out the engine and the gearbox we've got. I want to fit a new clutch and flywheel. I think that would just be an obvious choice while we've got access to everything. Then when it's in and fitted, we can just give it a service when it's up and running. But I think we should be able to have this thing up and running in the next couple of videos. Mark my words, who knows. My plan for today is to put it on a ramp, show you a little bit about the car, pull the original gearbox out, show you the new powertrain that will be fitted, change the clutch, and I think that'll probably be the episode done. But I think the next step now, let's get this thing in the workshop and have a look over it. Can you write the label on them? I can't spell the name.
What do you want from it?
Just put, what are we going to call it?
Green turd.
It's not a turd. But just put green disco for now.
TD5.
That's boring, isn't it? What can we call it, Matt? You got a name?
I don't know, green turd does sound quite...
I'm not having it now. Green turd. Snottenville.
I mean, right now we can upgrade the name once it's looking a bit better, but right now it's a green turd.
It's a green turd.
Green turd it is.
Green turd it is. So good morning guys, it's actually the next day and we decided to have a bit of a tidy up of the shop just so we've got a clean work area for today. And obviously we just pushed the Discovery One round. It is pretty much loaded up on the ramp and we are now ready to essentially pull the gearbox. I think that's the first thing we're going to be doing is pulling out the gearbox. Then we can actually mock up our sort of new engine and stuff like that to this area. I think I've got to take, because obviously the Defender has the shifting sticks are in different areas. The Disco One has like a fork on the back of the gearbox that I'm going to hopefully take it from here and hopefully it fits in the gearbox and hopefully our levers are in the same place. Obviously transfer box lever is on the transfer box, that's not a problem, it's just a gear stick. So first step is basically remove this gearbox and see if those things line up. So it's gonna be interesting, this one. But Kieran is making great progress on our chassis and bulkhead swap, the CD5 restoration videos. And the doors are on, we want to get this thing to paint on Wednesday because it's now having a full respray. He is doing a lot of the tedious bits and bobs like the hinges, the steering, the UJ, stuff like that, all the little finicky bits. He's built up the dash. You're doing really well on that, Kieran, aren't you? Yeah. You've got pretty much most of it together. It had a typical problem with like the TD5s and the early TDIs. The dash binnacle, where it gets in the sun, the cluster sort of, the plastic gets all frail and it all cracks. So we've put in a Raptor engineering unit, which is actually, what is it, aluminium or is it steel?
I think it's aluminium.
But it's a full bracket, so you've got a steel bracket and then the steel fascia itself. The previous one's just literally, because of the years in the sun, 25 years or whatever this thing is, they just explode when you try and take them apart. So it's looking much more like a car now. And it's amazing actually, this is so much work to get you to this point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Considering it had this is a brand new bulkhead. We spoke about it in the last video with this one, nothing lined up.
No.
The dash didn't go back together properly. The wiper spindles had to be turned up the other way. The wiper motors had to be remounted.
Yep.
The dash didn't line up. Instead, they had a lot of drilled new fixings. It would have been a boring video. So we're sort of hoping we can get this thing to a stage where I can just show you popping the wings on and say, cool. But yeah, it's actually, you're making great progress on this. And you've soundproofed that bulkhead, haven't you?
Yeah,
and you're going to do the footwells. But we're confident with the fitment now. You've had to do all your trimming, drilling, all that kind of good stuff. But it was a bit of an arduous process, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. But it's nearly there.
But it's looking good. It's now just literally a dash top piece. That's looking really smart.
Yeah.
We'll leave it to it. We're going to get cracking with this. So guys, this is the main sort of difference that we've got with this. The potential problem we've got with the engine conversion is obviously this is a Defender gearbox. The TD5 conversion that you can do if you send the gearbox off is not applicable to a Discovery 1 gearbox. They are the same box up to here, so I'm actually trying to switch over how the gear selector works. On this one, you've got a fork, which is what Defender would have used on this lever here. The Discovery doesn't have that, and it has more of a pin setup. So I'm hoping that we can actually switch out just the end part here, which is how the gear levers operate, and then we should be able to bolt up the Discovery to the Defender box. We've just measured the length of the whole powertrain, and there is room in the engine bay, but we don't know about the height yet to see if it's going to foul on the bulkhead, the firewall, or the kind of the crossmember situation. So first steps, we can get this switched over, hopefully, bolt it up to the transfer box, hang it where it sits, and then mock up the engine mounts and see where it's going to sit. We will need to also cut off the engine mounts that are currently there, because I don't believe they're obviously going to fit with 300 TDI. So if we can switch this over, then we should be on to track some. So guys, we've got the Defender gearbox mounted to the Discovery transfer box. We're still trying to work out if this conversion is possible, because obviously the Defender gearbox bell housing is longer. The gearboxes are not interchangeable because the TD5 has a totally different bolt pattern at the back. What I need to do now, because the Discovery, we can't take the whole front section away. Usually with a Defender, we can drop the transfer box, gearbox and engine all as one, because we can just access the chassis crossmember. On a Discovery 1, you cannot remove that front crossmember. Our engine crane cannot go high enough, it will give us too much of an angle. So we've had to do it in a bit of an awkward fashion, where we've left the transfer box in place because the Discovery mounts the transfer box to the crossmember. It's all a bit weird. We've then manhandled the Defender gearbox and bolted that to the transfer box. That's a standard Land Rover fitment, which is nice and easy. Now we're going to have to basically mock the engine onto the gearbox and bolt that up. That is going to be very annoying to do if this spigot is in the way, because it's going to try and it has to be absolutely perfect. We're removing the whole clutch, flywheel and spigot assembly so that we can essentially just have, because we're just trying to mock the engine mounts, we can just basically pop it together, bolt it up without any worrying about anything aligning properly. Then we can see if the conversion is viable. We can offer up our mounts, we can make sure there's enough clearance for everything. We can then take it out, cut off the Discovery mounts, mock this up again, tack in our Defender mounts, pull it out, weld everything properly, fit a new clutch, dual mass flywheel and everything, because this has got a bit too much play, and hopefully bolt this home for good. But now we're literally just going to hover this engine in with the original mounts in place, because I don't want to go cut them off if this conversion cannot be done, and see where we end up. I'm hoping that this engine is not too far forwards. It looks, to be fair, like it might fit, but that's where we're at now. So we're literally now going to put drop this in as it is now, bolt it up to that gearbox, and see what it looks like in the engine bay. So guys, that's our engine mocked up. Obviously we've got no flywheel, no clutch, no spigot, but it's bolted together in its final position. It's sitting so comfortably. I was actually a little bit concerned. We did a bit of measuring, and I was worried that the engine would be way too far forward, so we'd have to lose a viscous fan, and it'd look a bit weird in the engine bay. It's sitting like a completely standard setup. We've got just enough room behind the rear of the valve cover that we can access the gearbox bolts for a clutch, as if Land Rover had fitted it. We can keep the viscous fan. I've seen one other conversion with this, and it's sitting really far forward, and I'm guessing that's because they've done something with the gearbox. We're going to be modifying the Defender gearbox to run this whole setup and keep the original Discovery shifters. It's sitting absolutely perfect in the bay, even with the 300 TDI mounts, but they're obstructing us from being able to properly mock this up. Now we know everything is fitted as good as it is, and it's fitting better than the TD5 from the Defender. It's given us more room to work around, and it'll be using all standard parts. Even the standard cooling looks like all the pipes are going to marry up, and we're going to shove the intercooler in the original gap of all this frontal. Really satisfied with how this is sitting, and I think the next step now is literally to pull the engine out, cut the original mounts off the chassis. We can then put the engine back in, mock up the TD5 mounts. We've got the original weld-on brackets, so we're going to basically weld them to the Discovery chassis. They sit like a Defender, where they're welded to the top of the chassis rail. We can then use standard TD5 engine mounts. We can then drop it down, and it should sit where it does forever. Obviously, we're going to be putting a new clutch and dual mass flywheel in this. But this has been some really, really good progress so far, and I'm really happy with how that is sitting. And it's going to look like a completely standard conversion. And the interesting thing about this is there'll be no conversion parts. This will be a totally standard car. You can buy standard parts, it can be repaired anywhere without anyone knowing any prior knowledge. Just obviously the fact that it's got a TD5 fitted. We'll have more power, it'll be more refined on the road. And obviously if we can give this thing a classic guise, then it should be a good looking car which is able to keep up with modern traffic. And the TDIs, obviously they're great. And we love that engine, but a bit more power on the road should be delivered, and teamed with the original Discovery transfer box with a lower ratio, it should be a really comfortable daily driver, cruiser, whatever it needs to be. But it's just nice to know that we are one of the very few that have done this, and this will be an identical conversion to a Range Rover Classic. So we can mimic this exact installation into a Range Rover Classic, potentially automatic, blah, blah, blah. But it's a great value car, great value conversion. We have a really interesting Land Rover here that's very practical and usable. Really satisfied so far. Okay guys, so we have measured everything. We have got our mounts tacked only because I cannot get full access to the mounts to weld them. So I'm hoping my welds will hold, obviously, the engine when we remove the crane. We then need to lift the car up, make sure that we're in the right area. I have used a spirit level and measured the rocker cover and the fan on the front against the TD5 chassis over there. Everything is at the same degree, so it's actually pitched up at sort of like a -1 to 2, the actual fan, which is exactly where this is. But obviously I just want to send it in the air, make sure that we're happy with things like exhaust, the diff is going to clear the sump, the shifters inside all lined up, and then we can pull the engine, weld this properly, then we can do our clutch, put it all back together, and then it will stay there. So let's see if this will, if my welds will actually hold the engine on a tack. Ooh.
Snap.
Ding, ding, ding. Ooh.
Oh, I heard a crack then.
No, it wasn't a crack. Okay, so we're just holding on the tacks. Obviously this isn't proper, but everything's holding. Now we can take the crane away, we can test fit the bonnet, make sure that fits properly, make sure that you're going to have no problems with the conversion. But it sits very nicely in the bay, I'm really happy with that. So let's take the crane away. So this is really great to see. We have, it's literally an OEM position because obviously this part of the sump where your engine holds its oil is designed to not be hit by the axle when it goes up. Now if you look at the axle, it's going to go slightly forwards and up because of the shape of the radius arms. It's going to miss our sump exactly as Land Rover would have installed it. The steering bars aren't going to move, they're going to go up with it. They're going to be nowhere near that sump, there's plenty of clearance there. The crank pulley is sitting in a very similar position to the original TDI. The bonnet clears, the gearbox looks level, the props have got room to clear, everything clears. The mounts obviously need to be pre-welded and they're sitting quite comfortably. The lower tags at the back of the chassis and at the front, much like a TD5 would have on the frame. So really positive, it fits in there nicely. Now we can take the engine back out, we can install a brand new clutch, dual mass flywheel, pressure plate, spigot bush, slave. We can weld the mounts in properly and we can mount this thing for the final time. Okay guys, so now that our engine mounts are fully welded home, it's time to fit the engine for the final time. Now as you guys know, the clutch unit was all removed so that it would make mock-up mode easier, but now we need to install the engine for its final time. Now we are choosing to change the clutch assembly on this because obviously we have great access. It'd be silly not to change it whilst we're here. And whilst we're here, we're also going to be upgrading it from a standard dual mass setup to one of Loft's single mass setups. Now, every other Defender except the TD5 has a single mass flywheel. Now, I don't quite know why the decision was made to fit a dual mass flywheel. I assume because it's got 5 cylinders, it's slightly unbalanced, and so they wanted to reduce the vibration sent towards the gearbox and the drivetrain. Now, I've been installing Luke's single mass flywheel kit for a number of years now, and a lot of our owners have reported that they don't feel any excess vibration. You get a huge reliability factor with a single mass because it's literally a solid flywheel. Now, the previous ones, this has only done 55,000 miles, and we've got significant wear in the dual mass, and this is quite an expensive unit to replace. Now, if we do choose to upgrade this to a single mass flywheel, we'll never have to replace that again unless we've got heat fading, cracking, etc., which is going to be very rare. So this is a great upgrade, and huge thanks to Loft. We've installed a lot of their kit, as I'm sure as you guys know. We only install Loft clutches here, and it all comes in one nice package. You get everything you need, even little grease, you get every single fastener fixing, and all the stuff has been thought out. So all the clips and stuff that's plastic staples from Land Rover, all upgraded to metal clips so that you don't have to go in here again. Obviously this is quite a laborious job to get into the gearbox. The last thing we want to do is have a component go, which wasn't included with the standard clutch setup. So we literally have everything here on the gearbox side. We've even got a new push rod for the slaves because they tend to wear. So we've literally got everything here, including new nuts, bolts, torque ratings, everything to be installed, a new spigot. And once installed, we shouldn't have to enter the gearbox for a long, long time, which is obviously an advantage because this is a big job to get in here. Fitting all this and upgrading to a single mass flywheel is going to make a world of difference. So guys, use the discount code down below. You can save yourself a nice bit of discount. Thank you so much, Loft. We'll get back on with the video. So guys, that is our engine installed. Mount's fully welded and it's fitting absolutely wonderfully. We had obviously concerns when we initially started this conversion because the 300 TDI bell housing is so short that this engine will be sitting too far forward. Turns out it's in the absolute best position it could ever be. Come and have a look underneath. So we spoke about this earlier, but the diff is clearing the sump, which is really nice. We've got a TD5 downpipe, which is just from the turbo back. Now, whether or not you've got Disco 2 TD5, Defender 90, 110 and 130, the downpipe never changed. It was just the centre sections that were elongated. So this gives us a good reference point and we can use this downpipe to see what's going to happen. Obviously, I assume we're going to have some form of custom centre section and then probably back box as well. But looking at this, it's a little bit of a fiddle, but we're going to have to remove this cross member tomorrow. But if you look at how I get this through, so that's mounted on the manifold on the turbo. Obviously this cross member's in the way. Our exhaust hanger from a 300 TDI seems to line up absolutely perfectly. It even looks like it's going to mount up to the original 300 TDI exhaust, which means that somehow an engine conversion done here marries up to the original car, which was never fitted to by the factory, as if it was factory, including using all the factory mounts and everything. The radiator pack is sitting there comfortably, including a viscous fan, so it doesn't look like a conversion whatsoever. Underneath here looks like any completely standard car, and it will be a standard car. Just really weird, really weirdly it's worked out perfectly. We're happy with everything with regards to how that's all sitting. The bonnet clears. Everything's working great, which is really, really good news. It's usually a little bit more difficult than this, but I'm sure there's more challenges to face. But you're going to have to stay tuned for that in the next episode. But I hope you're enjoying this change of pace, usually from a Defender to a Discovery 1 project. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok @JuiceMotors, and we'll see you guys next time.